Scotty, welcome back to the couch again.
Thank you.
Very close to long service leave, they tell me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Having the summer off back in February.
And what are you leaving behind?
Lots of products that are going to be sold through your fantastic business over the course of the period, and some very happy grape growers, hopefully, who will have a very functional season.
Yeah, great.
That's the aim.
Yeah, have a great holiday. And Jim, welcome also to the couch. Great to have you along. AHA Viticulture, been in the industry for about 20 years, avid bike rider. Offered you some tickets a month or two ago to go and watch the Eagles. So you decided to fall off the bike and break your arm or something, didn't you?
Yeah, I did a shoulder. Took me a few weeks to get ready, to get back fit again, and I'm just about to jump back on the bike again now.
Okay. And tell us a bit about AHA Viticulture.
Yeah, look, AHA Viticulture has been around for quite a while. I joined in '98, but it had been going 4 years when I joined. So that's 24 years in the industry in this little nick of the woods, and always had a strong association with you guys, which has been great. Look, we try and do viticulture professionally. We look after vineyards, we consult, we run monitoring services, and I think we do a great job. We're across a lot of the region and other regions, and love being involved.
You do go across a lot of the regions, from the geograph to...
Yeah, it's contracted a little bit in the last few years. When we were in that huge development stage, we did a lot of work in Pemberton, the Great Southern, Geograph, Blackwood, and especially Margaret River. Now we're very much concentrated in Margaret River, but do a lot of work in Geograph, a little bit of work in Blackwood, and then sort of ad hoc stuff in the Great Southern, and also Perth Hills, and we get around.
Yeah. And previous life before AHA was the Ag Department. Yeah,
Ag Department was fantastic. I was there for 11 years, research officer in viticulture. Did a bit of work with table grapes and wine grapes, and it was great. Built up a really good network, met some fabulous people, and in those days the Ag Department was fabulous. There was not so much the constraints that they have with funding, I guess, and so I did a lot of work with irrigation, canopy management, and varieties, which I sort of set up the Vine Improvement Association. I'm still involved in that. So
yeah, great.
No, I set up some, as I said, some great networks, and it was a fabulous time. But I wanted to work in the private industry, and really feel like I was part of what was happening. So
yeah, great stuff.
AHA.
And over those years, and we're talking 11 and 28 years, that's a long time in the industry, and you would have seen a lot of changes.
Yeah, Neil, we've learnt a lot, I think, is what, it's a young industry, and I think we all made a few, not mistakes, but we've learnt a lot on how to improve what we do. And, building a vineyard nowadays, it's quite different. I mean, you look at varieties and you look at clones and you do, soil maps, and you look at your water resources and you talk to winemakers about, what they're looking for. So, we've learned a lot. We've come a long way, and the industry has, wine quality has. It's been a good journey.
And I suppose what we're talking about today is fungicide control, and now we're looking at, down the track of biologicals, and we're going to talk today about Botector. Nufarm brought Botector out last year for the first time, and Scotty, do you want to give us a quick rundown of Botector and where it fits in the?
It's an interesting space, this. You say things have changed a lot, and we're going down that process now with things like biorationals, biologically based products that we would never have thought about using 10, 15 years ago. So Botector is probably one of the first registered options for Botrytis control in this space, and it came out last year and was fairly well adopted, I guess probably conservatively within the Margaret River area, which is pretty much what we normally see. Most people like to look at products and see how they work in the field before they adopt them on a wider scale.
Okay.
But very well looked at last year, and I think performed pretty well under what was a fairly mild Botrytis season across most areas. So the Botector product is pretty simple. It's an organism. So it's when you buy a container of it, you're buying a spore suspension pretty much. You put it in the tank and apply it out, and the spores colonise entry points. And seal up or compete for food sources that would otherwise be occupied or fed on by Botrytis.
Okay,
It's a really simple product. It's all designed around managing populations of Botrytis down within the vineyard.
Yeah.
And hopefully, as its use increases, we'll see less Botrytis expressing in the vineyard. It's another tool that you can use in those later season windows or for organic growers through flowering and onwards.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's quite flexible.
yeah. So how does it work?
Oh, as I said, it's a colonizer. So you're applying it to a surface, berry surface. Through flowering, you have caps dislodge, you have scar material. That scar material is what Botrytis likes to feed on. It's a necrotroph, so it likes feeding on dead material. Botector comes across those same surface areas and colonises, seals them up. But it competes with the organism. So Botrytis is quite a slow-moving organism. We often think of it as a fast-moving one because we see it at the end of the season and it's there, and then it just wipes out your crop. But in terms of actual colonisation, it's really quite slow. Botector, the Aurea basidium pullulans, that's the key part of the Botector, that multiplies so quickly. So within 2 days of application, it's basically sealed up any entry points it comes in contact with. So we use it in those situations as a what we call a non-pathogenic competitive organism. So it outcompetes what you're trying to control.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about it from a control point of view in a population is you might have some resistance or you might have some sensitivity changes within your population of Botrytis. This doesn't actually put any selective pressure onto your population. It just shuts down the ability of that population to multiply up by feeding on the food sources.
Yeah, good. And Jim, you used it across some of your vineyards?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. There's definitely pressure on agricultural people, viticulturists, to be sustainable in how you produce food and wine and so on. And seeing products like this that are, they're not chemicals, but they do a job and they do it well. No, we're apt to see that sort of change because I think demand is coming from consumers, so we have to be reactive to that. And having products like Botector, makes it so much easier. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And things like withholding periods on.
Well, that's the good thing about this type of product. There is no withholding period.
It's fabulous.
There's no residue.
Yeah.
How you use it's up to the grower. But, and we talk about it in different windows. We talk about it through flowering for scar colonisation. We talk about it in pre-bunch closure windows in case of, light brown apple moth damage or something like that. It can help seal up wound sites quite effectively. And at veraison onwards, you can go all the way to the day of harvest if you wished. But you've got to be practical about where you're going to put it and why you're putting it there. Veraison's a classic because you have generally that expansion of the berries and micro scratches form across the berry surface. So those are perfect windows on the outside of the bunch where you can get Botrytis colonising. So
Jim, where do you see you guys using it?
Yeah, I guess we look at a program. The way we look at our fungicide program is to look at the risks, the varieties and the site, and then we develop a program for each risk point, I guess. So it's because of that withholding period issue with lots of products. That's one of the beauties of Botector. You can put it on pretty late. So we certainly use it there to a high degree, and you're very flexible, so you don't have to put it on, but if the pressure's there, you can. In high pressure sites, we use a range of products at flowering and bunch closure, but that number of products you can use is quite limited because of these withholding periods.
Okay, yeah.
So it depends a bit on the season, very much on the site and the value of the fruit. So it depends. We look at that. I mean, in our program, definitely late in the season. Often we are putting on bird net, and once you put bird net on, there's not very much you can do.
Yeah, okay.
So in our program now for the plan, and that depends how the season works out. But at the moment, in high risk sites, we've got an early spray and we've got one just before nets go on.
Okay, right. Yep.
And look, we've only had it for a couple of years, so what we've seen is it's effective. But we've still got we've still got more to see. But we've been very happy with it up to now. Yeah.
Scotty, tell us about the.
Sorry, just one moment. I just need to change someone's channel. No, change. No. Pretty sure it's those two that need to change. Change these ones?
Oh,
Change the channel?
Yeah, right first up. What is it?
From the start.
I'll go to that.
What's that mean?
Just the frequency that it's playing out. You can see it stretching out somewhere. Channel 11. There we go.
And I'm okay?
Let's try it again.
Is it? It's not the way the mic's sitting or anything, is it?
No. No, it's no. The frequencies themselves are on different bands. Every now and again, certain bands get a little bit of interference that comes in.
Oh, I see.
Luckily, while you're talking, it was coming through the other channel, but as soon as I'm pretty sure it's coming through yours.
Okay, yeah.
No,
Yep.
luckily for that part, it won't interfere. But if you get to a point where you're talking and you hear that sound, can't get rid of it.
Okay, right, yeah. Yeah.
But it should hopefully eliminate any problems.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds clear at the moment. I haven't heard it yet. So.
Okay.
We're
All good?
we're still going, yeah.
All ready to rock and roll. Scotty, trials with Botector. Over how many years? You did a lot of trials in the region.
We finished up last year. Well, I finished up last year doing the organics piece. So it started in 2011.
So organically certified?
Yeah, organically
Fantastic.
certified. Yeah, so we started in 2012 doing rate response work. So a lot of our work, well, all of our work gets done in small plot replicated evaluations, and I'm a big fan of that. I think if you can actually put it into replicated trial work, then it's something that you can then expand into a larger scale with confidence. So it's been done through a lot of Margaret River, a lot of the work in around that Carradale area where it's really high pressure.
Okay, yeah.
Pemberton, and further north as well, up towards Jindong.
Yeah.
It's been incorporated into small plot replicated work, and that's confirming dose rates first and foremost, then mixing. What can you mix it with? What can't you mix it with? There's been some adjuvant work around things like Duet, Vitiwet, how you use those products. It's a biological, so you need to be very careful about how you use it. You understand that there are fungicides that kill ascomycetes, and this is an ascomycete. So you have to be able to pressure test that sort of information. But it's been, quite a lot of work in Western Australia done over the years.
Yeah.
Last year's organic certification trials were good. We just put them into programs and saw how they bounced off other organically available products, and they worked very well.
We spoke about Duet a while ago. Works well with Duet?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
Fine with Vitiwet. Depends on how you want to run your system. This is a product that we tend to recommend as a bunch zone application. So if you're targeting a bunch zone, you're usually using a fairly decent sort of water volume, 200 to 500, somewhere in that range. It's not necessarily one of those scenarios where you're going to be doing a concentrate spray application. It's more likely dilute. So if you're a dilute user, you can use Vitiwet quite comfortably. If you want to go concentrate, you can use Duet.
Okay.
Scott, we've definitely been doing that, concentrating on the fruit zone, getting the water volume up. Dilute spray, using Vitiwet, and it's worked well. And the beauty of that is you're using less product, you're hitting the target, not having to spend quite as much on the chemical.
That's right.
On the product,
Because it's only going to function on the bunches.
Okay,
It's going to function on the bunches, so spraying the rest of the canopy, while it could be practical for other components in the tank, it's really not doing you any good as far as Botrytis control goes. So a targeted application is really what you want.
So Jim, I get it that use it late.
Yeah, primarily that's where we're using it at the moment.
Yep.
But
Concentrate on the bunches.
Yep.
Put the nets on. Go fishing until
let it ripen up and
until it ripens and then harvest.
Take it off when the winemakers say it's time to take it off. But no, look, from that point of view, it's worked well. And Scott was talking about some trials. I mean, we saw some results of some trials he did in Carradale, and we said, no, we have to use that because to us they were black and white, and we were impressed. And so we've put it into our program. Yeah, and happy so far. But it's a new product.
Yeah.
We need to see it for a few more years to give us more confidence, but definitely that sort of organic or sustainable way of going, suits what we're all trying to do.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting last year seeing how it was positioned in different slots within people's programs too.
Okay, yeah.
I did a bit of a review of the guys, the growers that were actually using it last year in their commercial programs, and you can see sort of consistently last year was a window where there was a bit of weevil damage around, or they felt like they needed something at pre-bunch closure, and there was a lot of pre-bunch closure sprays. Some people put it in, particularly the organic producers, put it into that 80% cap fall window. It worked well.
Yeah.
And then others used it at Verazon or maybe pre-harvest. So it's one of those tools that you can float within the season. As long as you know how to apply it properly, you put it where it needs to be for the growing season.
Yeah.
The beauty of Botector is there really are not very many products you can use late in the season now.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So it does give, and last year was a pretty tough season.
Yeah.
You know, the weather was a bit uncertain towards the end, and no, it just gave us a little bit of confidence to be able to put it on and know that we've got some protection there in that last bit of the ripening curve.
Yeah. But Scotty, I understand it's not a curative.
No, but it has no direct impact on the Botrytis at all, other than sacrificing the food source. Right? So it's why when you look at you do your spray records, you've got to put your chemical classes in, all the different groupings, your group 3s, your U8s, all those sort of products. This doesn't have a chemical class because it has no direct impact on the organism outside of taking the food source away from it.
Yeah, but that's the key for growers. Yeah. Because until you know that, you know, if there's a rain event coming or you've had an event and you've got some splits, I mean, if you can get Botector on before any fungus, Botrytis, starts colonising, you know, you're a step ahead of the disease.
Yeah.
And that was something we learnt last year. And that was talking to guys like Scott and saying, no, you've got to get it on before it colonises, and it was a good lesson for us.
Yeah. Scotty, does it do any other funguses?
Well, it's not going to control any fungus. It doesn't have a direct impact on all the other organisms, but there are multiple different organisms that it will be beneficial for. So our label recommends for use for Botrytis control, but in some other crops we talk about rhizopus suppression. Anything that's going to feed on the sugars in and around the bunch zone is going to be helped by reducing the overall entry points. If you've got an organism that actually actively penetrates and infects, then there's not much you can do about that. But if they're opportunistic organisms like Botrytis is, then you have positive impacts on that.
And what sort of rates are we talking?
So standard rate, so 100 grams per 100 litres. We've played around with lower dose rates and higher dose rates. You've got to remember that this thing colonises at an exponential rate. So when you get the spore onto the food source, it just rapidly colonises up and through and then seals it with its own polysaccharide that it forms. So it's one of those things where you just have to get the right concentration of spore into the canopy, onto the bunches, and then let it do its thing. The lower dose rates, you can tend to miss some of those colonisation points, and so you get a little bit more variability. The higher dose rate, well, you kind of get there within 2 days anyway. So there's no major advantage to going higher. So the one dose is all we really need.
Scott, can I just ask a question? There's a little bit of confusion with growers on what you can mix with it. So we, especially that late spray, we often chuck sulphur in there. So we've got a little bit of powdery protection and, you know, reduce that late in the season. What other products do we need to be careful of actually with mixing with Botector?
Multi-sites generally. So the multi-site fungicides, Mangazeb, Captans, well, we don't really have that as much in the wine industry anymore, but chlorothanol, those types of products tend to be fairly broad in their spectrum of diseases that they control. And as a result, they'll impact on this in terms of colonisation. That's not to say you can't use it in your program. It just means that you need to have a 3-day gap between the use of a product like a Mangazeb and the use of Botector, or 3 days after the use of Botector. You have a bit of a gap in between. Strobilurins generally kill it in the tank. So, but again, that 3-day gap either side of your Botector application, and it's fine. So if you're thinking about those sort of products, I'd probably just be a bit careful in the tank. Teldors, Prolectus, Switch, those type of Botryticides, perfectly fine. They're all good. And they're fine to be sprayed in the tank with it if you wanted to. So they're good options for you. Most of the powdery mildew products that you've got are pretty okay.
Yeah.
I'd just be a bit cautious about anything that's got a high solvent load, so EC formulations. We talk about Digger as a really good powdery mildew product.
Yeah.
That's one that has a very unique spectrum of diseases that also covers off ascomycetes, so it'll kill this product.
Okay,
So
right,
you just have to be a little bit careful about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's pretty flexible. The one thing I would say is that if you're mixing it with other products, reference our guidelines. So we have a one-pager that you'll see in the marketplace that you can reference what we think is safe. Try and limit the number of sprays that you're putting in, components you're putting into the spray tank.
Okay,
So
yeah.
if it's a single mix partner, fine. If it's 2, 3, 4, then just have a bit of a
So
think about
sulfur
what
and
you're doing.
copper, so?
Sulfur and copper are fine.
Yep.
We probably prefer tribasic copper sulfate to
Yep.
hydroxides.
Okay.
That's more to do with the pH. So
Okay, yeah.
tribasic copper sulfate, tribase blue, sits at a pH of around 7. Hydroxides sit at 10.
Yep.
So you're at the upper level
Okay.
of impact of pH on the organism. So we try and avoid those if we can. Minimise exposure to other products.
Yeah.
But again, you're talking about a bunch zone application.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Right, so if you're going in there, more often than not, you're going to cover the whole canopy for powdery control,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Yeah.
So those options you'll probably split out of the
Yeah,
application.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's all about coverage, isn't it?
All about coverage.
Yep.
Coverage and, getting good airflow in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being able to access the bunches. I think some of the growers that I saw last year, the best results that I saw were the ones who had managed their canopy really, really well.
No,
They were nice and open.
Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
bunches were separated and layered on each other. All the basics of viticulture that we'd want to see in a good vineyard.
Yeah.
They're the ones that actually get the best results out of it.
No, but
it's coverage.
Yeah. What Scott's saying, Neil, is I think that's where we've moved in viticulture as well, is understanding the whole system.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
you know, especially Botrytis, but powdery as well, Downy to a lesser extent, you know, canopy architecture is really important.
Okay, yeah.
And,
yeah.
and having good airflow and, you know, bunches that aren't touching on, you know, not too tight, not too much trash in the canopy. So any management that we can do in the field that reduces that and, you know, combine it with good products, and
Yeah.
it does reduce your you know, susceptibility to disease.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So, Jim, your typical spray program.
Cool, okay.
There we go. And understanding
are
that you work between geographic,
Yeah.
the Bunbury region right through to
Yeah.
through Bridgetown and
Look, Neil, it's pretty varied. As I said earlier, we try and look at sort of the risk of the site, and we sort of do up a program for different risk levels.
yeah,
And as Scott was saying, sort of northern vineyards, we're not so concerned about botrytis.
okay, yeah,
So I generally don't put a botryticide in at all in the, you know, geograph vineyards. And having Botector available, if there's an event late in the season, you can put that in. So look, powdery, we're obviously very careful with resistance management.
okay, yes,
Quite a lot of products. So, you know, we choose products, we make sure we alternate. And for powdery's our biggest issue, really. You know, timing, coverage, getting the right product, making sure you're changing product is really important. Downy mildew, it's quite interesting, you know, it sort of came in the late 90s.
yeah, yes,
And everyone was scared, and, you know, suddenly we started needing to use another sort of set of products to manage Downy. But we haven't seen crop loss with Downy. We're pretty careful. We use, you know, basically copper,
yeah, yeah.
and different forms of copper depending on what we're spraying, and, you know. So Downy's not too bad. There is some, we put on protectants, and there is some eradicants around that we try not to have to use, but
Okay, yeah,
occasionally we do. And then Botrytis is all about, as I said, the risk. So on sites that are high risk, we'll try and do a flowering spray. We'll try and do a pre-bunch closure spray. And now, you know, we've got Botector that we can use late in the season, which is fantastic. But, oh wow, it's tough because, you know, the rules keep changing. A lot of those products that we are allowed to use
Oh, yeah.
The timing on we're allowed to use them keeps getting pushed back because of residues, because of
Sometimes even in the middle of the season.
Oh man, it is tricky. So something like Botector, it's fabulous because no withholding. You can use it when you need to use it, and it's just an extra weapon. So yeah, putting together a spray program, it takes a lot of time and thought. Risk, what the site's had before. Yeah, so there's no typical program.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. So just on the biologicals, Scotty, they've just entered the market. Where, crystal ball gazing, where do you see these going?
Oh, look, I think they've got a real fit. Again, it comes down to low residue components and that late season application, because the more we hamstrung ourselves with restrictions on residue of chemistry, the more opportunity you give your diseases to get established, and that late half of the season can sometimes just be a nightmare. So they've got a fit. I guess the challenge is the industry tends to look at things from a just pure chemistry perspective, because that's what we're trained to do. And these are more unique. Every offering that comes to the market will be different to the one before. As a general rule, they may have the same target pathogen that they're chasing, but they do it about a very different way. So it's important for us to go through and figure out exactly which product is working in certain situations, what that toolbox looks like.
Okay, yeah.
I guess that's the challenge for the industry moving forward, is that a lot of these little biologicals coming through, what do they actually offer? How do they function for you?
Yeah.
And how do they function over the course of a season?
No, absolutely.
So the one thing I like about Botector from a Margaret River perspective is that so much of the work has been done here.
Yeah.
So we know really well across multiple seasons how it functions in different scenarios. So that's a major advantage when we're making recommendations for growers.
Was there a good take-up of Botector across the nation last year?
It was a funny year last year. Yeah, South Australia had very hot weather, and then the Coonawarra got frosted quite badly.
Okay, yeah.
So there were sort of hot spots around where weather conditions really didn't favour it. Victoria was the same, actually. Yarra Valley.
But we like that. We like it when the weather's good on us.
Well, we're more consistent than the rest of the country.
Yeah, that's
at the
right.
moment.
Yeah, true.
So the Yarra Valley, I think they got some botrytis, and it never really expressed further than just initial onset. It was a weird season.
Yeah.
So, and we had probably the best uptake in Australia because of the consistency of our production. And also, I guess, the focus on botrytis. The Yarra Valley is very focused on downing and then botrytis. South Australia is very powdery orientated and then botrytis. We're sort of more akin with the South Australians, I guess. We look at powdery first as our major pathogen to worry about.
Yeah. No, that's the one that scares us most.
There's lots of the southwest that get serious pressure consistently, and the last couple of years have been bad for botrytis expression. Particularly Margaret River Down and across to Pemberton, Manji sort of areas. So I guess the focus for us is always on those two pathogens primarily.
We spoke about powdery, or Jim, you spoke about powdery earlier, and Nufarm got Digger out. You Digger a run for the first time last year?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice product. We had a lot of success with it. We've got it in our program again, so we'll use it again this year. And again, it's about mixing up the products. We like that one.
So how's the industry looking, Jim? Going forward into 2018, you have a quite a strong client base.
Most of our client base, we're fruit producers, so we sell fruit to wineries. Some of our clients make their own wine, and we help them with that. We've had a couple of pretty good seasons. So production in 2017 was huge. Production last year was also quite good, and it's quite unusual to have two good years in a row. And also the wet tax rules have changed a little bit. So it is a little bit more difficult moving fruit, selling fruit to wineries this year. They got pretty good stocks in their cellars. So that's making it a little bit difficult. But always good varieties, good clones, good quality fruit sells. Semillon and Sauv Blanc are quite difficult. Just market pressure on those varieties. Chardonnay is really strong, particularly out of this region.
Okay, yes.
Just does, it just produces world-class Chardonnay and Cabernet. But yeah, there's a bit of pressure on Cabernet because the last 2 years have been pretty good. So yeah, was sort of on a improve in the industry.
Yeah,
But yeah, a little flattening off, a bit more of a flattening off than we would have liked to see this year. But no, optimistic.
I'm aware there's a few blocks of Chardonnay going and new plantings going into Chardonnay around the place, which is
Yeah,
And clones too, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a fair bit of clonal work with the Burgundy clones and a lot of interest in them. But you get the winemakers together, and Department of Agriculture did some work with some clones of Chardonnay, and the winemakers they like our Gin clone. It is something that we do really, really well.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of those clones got planted, and I think they'll be used in blends. But Gin Chardonnay is still the number one as far as winemakers go. Yeah.
It would have to be, wouldn't it? It's the hardest one to grow.
No, you struggle to get yield, and but the wines speak for themselves. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we've pretty much covered it. Scott, have you got anything else to add to the Botector story?
I think we've covered it. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes out in this season. Second year in use. Feedback so far from most of the growers that I've spoken to about their programs, they're very happy, and I think they have a better understanding of how to use it, having seen it and discussed it after a year of use in the field. So we'll look forward to, after my long service leave, seeing how it's all progressed.
Yeah.
Jim, any advice to growers who are wanting to put in the program?
Yeah, look, we learnt a lot about it last year, and great help from guys like Scott on how to fit in your program, when to use it, and we were really encouraged with the results last year. From our perspective, these sort of products, bring one out for powdery mildew. Fantastic. It's where we have to head as a.
I was trying to get that out of Scott. Yeah, there was one coming.
Well, we've got microthyle, and microthyle's pretty hard to beat.
Oh, there we go.
No, that's true. Yeah. So no, it's great, and we'll use it again and learn more about how to use it and get the most out of it. Yep.
Yeah, great. Jim, thanks very much. I know you're a busy man. Just come off 5 weeks holiday in South Africa.
I've got a bit of catching up to do.
You've got a fair bit of catching up, quite a few emails and phone calls to make.
That's good.
Look, thanks very much for your time. And,
enjoyed that, thank you.
And also, Scotty, thanks for your time as well.
More than welcome.
Have a great holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.